In this video, we will demonstrate the simplicity of deploying and administering policy management through OPA Gatekeeper using the RAFE Kubernetes Operations platform. We will use the rctl CLI along with declarative specification files to create and manage all resources needed for this exercise. First, we will use rctl to create two OPA constraint templates, which will define the Rego logic and the schema for our constraints. We can now see the templates are being created. We can use the RAFE console to verify the constraint templates were created successfully. Next, we will create two constraints that map to the constraint templates that were previously created. These constraints define the specific details for the constraint templates to follow. Next, we will create a policy which will contain the previously created constraints. Now, we will create a custom cluster blueprint, which will contain the OPA Gatekeeper managed add-on and the previously created OPA Gatekeeper policy. We will then apply the custom blueprint to our cluster. This can take a few minutes as each add-on defined within the blueprint is being provisioned. Once the blueprint is successfully applied to the cluster, we will create a workload that will be used to test the OPA Gatekeeper policy constraints. Once the workload is created, we will then attempt to publish the workload to the cluster. Be aware that the test Nginx workload will not be able to be published as the container image being used in the spec file is not from an approved repository. The OPA Gatekeeper constraint we created and attached to our policy will deny the creation of this container. We can see that the workload failed to publish. We can now edit the workload specification file to pull the image from an approved repository. We can attempt to republish the updated workload. We now see the workload was published successfully. We can now review any policy violations for the cluster. The policy will automatically audit the resources on a specified interval to determine any violations. We can see there are multiple WARN enforcement actions currently in place due to one of our constraints. We can also review the OPA audit history in the audit logs. Here, we can see both the WARN and deny actions and when they occurred.